be this big, did you? No?
I know I might get some flack for this, but that's the only part of the movie I ever found scary. Jack Torrance is a writer in need of a getaway. The Overlook Hotel is aground in need of a caretaker for the winter. Seeing this as a match made in heaven, Jack is thrilled when the opportunity comes his way. But there's just one problem. The previous caretaker...
He killed his family with an axe. Stacked them neatly in one of the rooms of the West Wing, and then he put both barrels of a shotgun in his mouth. Police, they thought that it was what the old-timers used to call cabin fever. Kind of claustrophobic reaction which can occur when people are shut in together over long periods of time.
Wow.
As if that wasn't bad enough, Jack's son, Danny, and his imaginary friend, Tony, begin seeing violent and disturbing portensions of the future. They aren't the only ones. Jack's wife, Wendy, isn't particular to the idea of being alone with her husband for several months, seeing as how Jack has been slightly abusive in the past.
My husband had been drinking, and he came home about 3 hours late. So he wasn't exactly in the greatest mood that night. And, well, Danny had scattered some of his school papers all over the room, and my husband grabbed his arm, to pull him away from him. It's just the sort of thing you do 100 times with a child, in the park or in the streets. But on this particular occasion, my husband just used too much strength, and he injured Danny's arm.
And did I mention the hotel was built on an Indian burial ground?
The site is supposed to be located on an Indian burial ground, and I believe they actually had to repel a few Indian attacks as they were building it.
Regardless of these warning signs, the Torrances move into the Overlook Hotel for the winter, and what starts as a simple caretaking job becomes a battle against the supernatural, the surreal, and their own demons and sanity. Will they escape the horrors that harass them, or become victims of the hotel and their own cabin fever? Unique from the big-budget approaches of other haunted house films like Poltergeist or The Amityville Horror, The Shining goes for a creepy, unsettling atmosphere more akin to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The film was directed by Stanley Kubrick, and his signature styles are more than effective for this low-budget intention. Use of unusually long tracking shots builds suspense and intrigue in small, seemingly insignificant moments. Labyrinthian set design, which actually changes throughout the film, disorients the audience and places them in the confusion of the characters. And a tithe of unsettling chants, drums, and synthesizer all give the film an almost feral sense about it that only accelerates as the sanity is sucked out. Now I have to comment that from an editing standpoint, the film is very eccentric in places. Necessary scenes of information are left out, and perspectives are layered in ways that confuse the viewer, particularly in big freakout moments, and all this is intentional. Kubrick was known to edit his own pictures, which is very unusual for directors, and cut the film to be slightly confusing. He even removed the original ending. One last comment, note the use of Native American decor in the Overlook set. This and many other visual symbols are a way of connecting the hotel's past with its present. Neat, huh? The Shining has become infamous for the torture it put its cast under, particularly co-star Shelley Duvall. Kubrick famously asked for upward to 100 takes and forced his actors to go to the edge of insanity and back, over and over, with no change in direction. So those manic screams you hear from the cast members are more authentic than you think. Despite the lunacy between takes, the acting jobs in The Shining are top-notch. Jack Nicholson's intense, partially improvised Jack Torrance is both terrifying and hilarious at points.
Nothing serious. Just a little problem with the old sperm bank upstairs. Nothing I can't handle, though, Lloyd. Thanks.
Shelley Duvall is also great as the only admittedly normal person in the entire film, gasping and gaping in horror at everything around her. And Danny Lloyd, who surprisingly quit acting after this role, does a marvelous job as the deeply disturbed Danny Torrance.
Red rum. Red rum. Red rum.
There's also a cook character I forgot to mention earlier, played by Scatman Crothers. Not that Scatman! Who counters Jack's bipolar intensity with a warmness and concern for the family's well-being, almost like he knows what's coming. He's also the only character who can relate to Danny's visions, having had similar telepathic messages all his life.
When I was a little boy, my grandmother and I could hold conversations entirely without ever opening our mouths. She called it shining.
When The Shining was released in 1980, it received mixed reviews from audiences and critics. Defenders of the original Stephen King novel claimed Kubrick butchered the source material, although having seen the 1997 miniseries, which more closely followed the original book, it wasn't without King's trademark cheesiness and camp.
There you are, Doc. Been looking for you.
Only fairly recently has the film been reevaluated and accepted as a facet of pop culture. The Simpsons did a great spoof of it, it's regularly referenced in TV and other film, etc., and it's also inspired a wealth of fan analysis and debate, even resulting in documentaries being made on the subject. While Kubrick's odd little horror film may be seen as just another haunted house movie, I've always interpreted it as an evaluation of the concept of deep time. Deep time, for those unfamiliar, is a concept of time in the geological sense, as an impression made on the environment through years and years of wear. Think the inside of tree trunks or cliff faces. The Shining explores this concept by relating it to the human spirit, arguing that all human life, similar to floods and earthquakes, can leave imprints, these spiritual, on the ground they preside on. And this goes for great suffering and torment as well.
When I came up here for my interview, it was as though I'd been here before. I mean, we all have moments of deja vu, but this was ridiculous. It was almost as though I knew what was going to be around every corner.
And in the end, Jack, like his aggressive forefathers who slaughtered the Indians, is forever ingrained as a part of the area and another ghoulish resident of the Overlook Hotel. The Shining isn't scary, but it's unsettling. There are a few weird moments every now and then, but for the most part, it's a creepy film with an impressive and arresting power. Check it out.